Oh,
Yes.
looks good.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
we were just having that
Thank you.
discussion how he finally made it to the barber.
I
You
did.
made it to the barber.
Yes, I got on the subway.
Stay 6 feet away from him?
No, I did not stay 6 feet away from her. I did not.
Okay.
I don't. Obviously, this joke. And a delayed reaction. Ow! Stop it.
Did you socially distance from the barber?
Yeah, I socially distanced from the barber. Yeah.
Laser, I guess like laser barbers maybe?
No,
That could be a thing.
I guess. Yeah. No, it was the first time I got on the subway since March 16th, and
Really?
I was not impressed.
Yeah, I'm afraid to even get on the subway.
The funny thing is that I have been on it like 2 or 3 times since.
I know.
But when I got on it, it was earlier on when more people were still afraid to get on the subway.
Yeah.
So, and now I think that people are starting to go back to work. Like I actually, oddly enough, haven't been leaving the house as much lately, especially since like now I'm off of staycation and back to work from home. So my
So you're working in person now?
No, I'm still working remotely, but
okay.
I wasn't working at all the previous 2 weeks, and now I'm
Summer school?
yeah.
Okay.
So I get like, so I was just saying, so it's like it's half days, but it's still like, you know, gotta get up, gotta do stuff, gotta have people scheduling meetings for me at 8:45 in the morning that could have been done in an email.
Yeah, that sucks.
Like, basically that kind of like you know how I was complaining about that meeting, about being scheduled for a meeting at 8:30 in the morning?
Yeah.
Like, turns out that could be like, you know, turns out that was one of those meetings that could have been taken care of in an email because they were trying to tell us how they wanted us to fill out an Excel sheet tracking what we were doing while remote working. And it's just like, come the fuck on. Because
that's annoying.
It's annoying because, like, once again, it's like this pesky state regulators coming in, like, not like physically, but like they're not coming into Zoom classes now yet, but they're asking for all of this like massive amounts of proof that we're actually like fucking doing our jobs.
Right.
And I feel like, you know, like, okay, we're doing our jobs. In fact, we're doing our jobs better than anybody could have imagined us doing in the middle of a fucking stupid global pandemic. So
yeah, I feel like they should be the ones offering up proof that they're doing their jobs.
Right.
Well, yeah, because they aren't. Like,
but then they'd be like, well, my job is to ask you for your info, so if you want me to prove I'm doing my job, give me all your info.
Yeah, then they would be like, my job is to deal with the people. I'm a people person. What's wrong with you people? Just like in Office Space.
Yes. Oh, that's funny.
Like, so we have to say, like, the meeting was basically about having to fill out this stupid fucking Excel sheet that said on it, where we had to fill out, you know, who was on our teaching team and which teacher was in charge of outreach to students at 9 o'clock while the other teacher was teaching, and which teacher was teaching at 10 o'clock and who was calling those students, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it's like, you people just want me to spend the rest of my life on the phone, don't you? I don't even like the phone.
Yeah, it sounds like something that could have been done on a Google sheet. Hey, what's up, Ish? Are you there?
I am.
What's up, Ish?
Good.
What's going on? How is everyone?
Good.
We were talking about meetings that could have been an email.
What's that?
We were talking about having to go to stupid meetings that could have been taken care of in an email.
Work stuff.
Yeah, or even like a Google spreadsheet or something.
It's like, I got called to a meeting at 8:45 in the fucking morning to talk about how to fill out an Excel spreadsheet, as if I haven't been filling out Excel spreadsheets for like ever and ever and ever and ever in my life.
Yeah.
Like,
Stop it.
I swear, like,
Ah,
it's like you guys were saying, like, the people whose jobs is to hold us accountable, if we ask them to actually do their job, they're going to be like, well, watching micromanaging you is my job.
Yeah.
Bastards.
Are y'all doing a script today?
We have to wait till we have
Maybe eventually.
a critical mass first. But yes, Joey's planning on coming, so that makes 4.
That sounds alarming.
Has Joey participated yet?
In a reading, no, but
he
he's
was
very
supposed to
interested.
do clerks with us and he forgot.
I'd like to point out that we do have a case of the disappearing Katie.
Again.
I don't understand what that means. What do you mean
case,
again?
A case of the disappearing Katie.
That he hasn't been around in a while, or?
Yeah, he kind of disappeared.
Yeah. I mean, we haven't seen him in the text, but he did. No, he did. He did
jumped
show up
in a couple times.
Yeah. He's been jumping in a few times actually. He
Did
just
he get the
doesn't.
link?
Well, no. I mean, you didn't ask him if he hasn't responded since the link was just put up. No, I mean he's been responding like maybe every few days or so, but not like a response. There's no immediate response, and when his name is mentioned, he doesn't like respond.
Well, yeah, because it's not like you get a notification.
When your name, it depends on how you have everything set up. If your name is mentioned, you do get you get a notification that your name was mentioned. When you add someone.
Maybe you turned it all off because you said it felt like you were getting life alert bracelets.
No, I didn't turn anything off. I just will sometimes open up a thread and see my name added, and I'm like, oh, I didn't, you know what I mean?
Nobody told me I was atted.
Yeah, I don't get a notification.
What a sordid state of affairs.
Oh, well, yeah, I guess what I'm saying is you'll get what do you have your setup so that like you get the little SMS at the top of your screen or whatever?
The little what?
The alert.
The SMS?
Like a banner.
Yeah, like a banner at the top of your screen that tells you what people are saying?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. Yeah, I guess that's the one that'll tell you if your name was added, but it's not. I guess it's not a special.
Well,
it's not a special alert. It's just like you'll just see
your name was added.
Well, it's probably different from Android.
Right.
On Android than on iPhone, anyways.
Yeah.
I can't help Android users.
Yeah.
It's not in my job description.
So Sam, what's been good with you? What have you been up to?
Well, I seem to have gotten out of my writer's block funk. I watched Hamilton on Disney Plus last night, which was really awesome and inspiring, and I ended up releasing my favorite movies of the decade this morning on Facebook, and that's prompted me to start my movie blog finally. So
Oh, cool.
So I'm really happy. Yes, I'm really happy about that. And
Yeah, I didn't finish Hamilton, but I got
fell
through like,
asleep.
most of it. I got through at least more than half.
Okay. Had you ever seen it before?
No, it was great though. I was enjoying it.
Yeah, it's great. It's long, so if you start it late at night, it's going to be, it might be a little bit of a challenge. But
Really, I could have gotten through it, but I was like chatting with these folks
How long is it?
instead of
Oh,
watching.
so you're blaming me.
Yeah,
it's like 2 hours and 40 minutes.
yeah, I was gonna say 2:45.
I mean, yeah, it's an actual. I mean, it's the length of the actual musical.
Even included with a, with the intermission.
Oh,
The intermission is 1 minute
so-
though. Like,
Oh,
if
it's
it was-
only a minute.
Yeah,
It's
it's
only
only,
a-
it's only 1 minute because you're watching at home. You know what? You don't need to take a bathroom break. You can put it on pause.
Right.
but it's
That
like,
makes sense.
but no, when I saw it in the theater, back in the olden days when Broadway was actually open,
Yeah.
I
It
miss going to Broadway.
it was probably like a 3 to 3.5 hour affair. Just
Oh,
because
really?
by the time you sit the fuck down, like
Right? Yes, of course. Because
the show starts, then intermission happens, and then intermission on Broadway is always like a half an hour because the line to the ladies' room is like
Oh,
a mile long. Like,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
I feel like the only place, like, in life where the line is longer for the men's room than the ladies' room is like at an NFL game.
That makes sense.
Because even in a baseball game, like, the lines are pretty even between the men's room and the women's room.
Oh, that's
There
that's
seem
fun.
to be like more female baseball fans than football fans, I guess. I don't know.
Well, sure. I guess that tracks.
But Broadway is just like, forget about it. Like, it's very tempting to use the men's room during intermission on a Broadway show.
Well, yeah, someone should get smart and like rethink the whole men's, women's room, especially in those cases.
Well, oh, but you can't do that. What if the crazy like right wingers say that like
They don't go to
an
Broadway.
agenda of the transgenders?
They don't go to Broadway. They're
Oh,
attending their cook meetings and their NASCAR and everything in between.
and their Trump rallies.
Yeah, they haven't gone to a Broadway show in a long time.
You kind of got a good point. If they're that,
Yeah.
if they're
They're
that
definitely
homophobic, they ain't going to Broadway.
they're definitely not going to Hamilton either.
Yeah.
They're in for a rude awakening if they go to Hamilton.
Well, Mike Pence.
I would pay to see that.
We have to give Mike Pence credit, right? He tried to go.
He tried?
to go.
What happened?
He tried. Well, no, he sat through the whole thing, and then
Oh.
the cast like came out of character at the end. It basically gave him a fucking scolding
Yeah.
for like
Sure.
how for being himself.
Right.
Yes.
He's like, wait a minute, this isn't in the script. What's going on here?
Exactly. So yeah, so he did go. Yeah, Mike Pence went to Hamilton. Yeah.
I would have loved to have been there for that.
Yeah, I assume he must have been towards the front row or something.
Oh, probably. I would have loved to have seen his face for the
Or no,
immigrants
probably
who
not.
get
Probably in the special seats, right? The
box
seats.
seats. I would love to have been there just to see his face.
Yeah.
Why? It barely changes expression.
I mean, good point, but I would have loved to have seen
I know
his
what you mean.
reaction to the immigrants they get the job done line.
No, I know what you mean. Truthfully told, actually, the show it's not that subversive. Like it drops
Right.
it drops an occasional
Well,
I mean,
it was censored for TV though.
No, it was censored for TV, but it drops an occasional like fact about like some of the founding fathers that put a little bit wrinkle in our reverence for them. But mostly it's pretty accurate to history, and it doesn't make any of them look really that bad. I think like the whole point. I think a lot of the show was really just kind of like a way I think actually, it's. I read a really good article. I'm not touting this theory as my own, but I really liked it. Is that basically it's fanfic, and that it's a way for like certain marginalized communities to kind of like reclaim the narrative in the the founding of the country.
Yeah.
It was just like a way for them to like, it's a fantasy about them being at the top. And
I mean, here's the thing though too. I think that the plot of Hamilton is analogous ostensibly to what's going on now, with the fact that like Burr, like Aaron Burr is supposed to be analogous to like, your typical whatever run-of-the-mill Democrats who like insist on working within the system and don't like to make a fuss, whereas Hamilton is like kind of analogous to the people who are saying like, wait a sec, something's wrong here, like this isn't going to change unless we do something about it.
That's true. Though ironically enough, in real life, if Alexander Hamilton were alive today, he would not be embraced by progressives, at least by modern progressives. Aaron Burr would be more. Actually, Aaron Burr would be more well liked by like most people who consider themselves left of center than Hamilton would.
Well, yeah, because of the financial stuff.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Someone was saying one of the folks from back in the day doesn't get enough credit, but was actually like the only one who didn't like own slaves or something.
That was Hamilton.
Yeah.
They weren't mentioning Hamilton. It was someone else they were mentioning.
If I had to guess, was it John Adams?
Nope, it wasn't John Adams.
John Adams never own slaves, and was in fact an abolitionist. But
no, it wasn't Adams. It wasn't
Okay.
Adams. I would know the name if I heard it.
Right.
Well, it definitely wasn't Jefferson or Madison.
No.
Or Washington, although Washington freed his slaves upon his death.
Yeah, not Washington. It's a name. It's one of those names that's like well known, but not like a bigger, not like a president or
Hancock, Monroe.
Yeah, not a president.
Okay.
I mean, I know like Hamilton was more, I don't know, though Hamilton was more anti-slavery than the majority of the founding fathers, although I think he was still, from what I gathered, he was still complicit with with his in-laws owning slaves.
Yeah, yes, correct. He was not, yes, he was not as much of a, he was not as into slavery as a lot of the people around him were.
But I think you're right though, that like modern progressives would probably actually, if the exact same situation were happening today, take the side of Burr.
Yeah,
but
no,
I think
Alexander Hamilton was a super capitalist.
But I think that like the premise of the whole thing is much more like the general idea of like, if you don't like something, like don't just keep quiet and keep your head down. Fucking do something about it,
Yes, and Hamilton was a dreamer, and so in that sense, actually, he was amazing because he changed the entire financial system of this country.
Now we can't fix it.
Yes, but I don't know if you can blame that on him. No, but I don't know. Not very many people can see over 200 plus years into the future.
Well, that's what gets me so much about like all these people who are like, but the Constitution says, and you feel like saying, yeah, but you assholes, this was a document written 240 years ago. Like, you don't think that things don't change?
Yep. Exactly.
Then again, these are people who don't want things to change.
Yeah, that too. That as well. Yes. Stop it. Yeah.
So So I don't know if you saw, I know Ish saw it. I don't, Flav, you read it? Or you saw it anyways, the article from the Times,
Mayor of Minneapolis.
the mayor of Minneapolis, yeah.
Mm.
That
Oh
put
yeah,
it-
I didn't open it up.
But you saw the title.
Yeah, I saw the title.
Like,
yeah.
I think that's totally like, I don't know, that really kind of hit, reading that really kind of hit home for me, that's like so much of what's going on with people's discomfort is that people don't want to lose their own privilege. And I feel like, that,
Yeah.
like,
I mean, that's nothing
ages-
new.
But I feel like for ages, like, you know, I've spoken to the fact that, like, we may have to, that maybe it's not such a bad thing to give up some of our privilege. And I feel like that, like, half the people that I say that to look at me like I'm a friggin' alien or something with 5
Right.
heads.
Right.
That they're like, oh, but like, you know, whatever you've had, like a good upper middle class existence, like, why would you knowingly want, like, to make things worse for yourself? But I don't really see it as making things worse for myself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, it depends on what you mean by giving up your privilege. I mean, technically, that would make things worse for yourself. But you know, put you in the same position as a lot of other people.
Well, I mean, the big one is that, like, you know, I would rather live where I can afford to live than insist on, like, living in a wealthier neighborhood because I technically could have, like, afford it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or, like, I don't, but that's just kind of like a thorny situation because, like, on the flip side of that, it's like, I don't want to be seen as like a gentrifier. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So so you're saying you could afford to you can technically afford to live in a nicer neighborhood, but you're like choosing to live like you're talking about like your parents' money versus your money. Is that what you're basically talking about? Or?
Yeah, basically, in that, like,
Yeah.
Well, I think
parents,
it makes sense for you to. Sorry.
like, parents, like, you know, in-laws, whatever, like, if they started to, like, flip the fuck out and were like, oh my God, you gotta move, it isn't safe, which they haven't, but, like, if they were like, oh my God, you gotta move, it isn't safe, like, we'll pay for it, like, this, that, and the other, like, technically, like, I could move into a nicer neighborhood, which also overlaps with it being, to nicely phrase it, a whiter neighborhood. And that's, in my opinion, not something I'm willing to do.
Right.
Like, not only for the purpose of, like, that I don't want to take my mother's retirement money. I mean, what if we got to put her in the old folks home someday? That costs money. But also, like, just the principle of the thing, like, why is it worth, like, paying out the ass in rent for, like, for what looks, for an illusion of safety, for basically for, like, security theater? Because when it comes down to it, I feel like it's like, it's not always safer in, like, in the suburbs than it is, like, in parts of New York. Like, shit still happens.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on who you are, and I mean, there's statistics. I mean, there's safety versus there's statistics of what's safer or what's not safer. I mean, those numbers can be broken down into cold, hard numbers, but there's a lot more than that when it comes to figuring out where you want to live, you know?
I mean, here's my thing about it is like if I, like, you know how I said like earlier, like some dudes got stabbed in a bar fight, like in one of the bars near where my mom is.
Yeah.
Like, and it was a white guy. Number one, it was a white guy who did it. So that completely kills any arguments that from racists. Number one. But number two, even like for the longest time, I felt like that, like I could live in like upstate, tucked away back in the middle of nowhere. But what if I wanted to go for a walk late at night? Like, hypothetically, like some shit could happen or some person could drag me down like a dark alley and like never be seen or heard from again. So, and there would be nobody around to witness it like there would be in a city. You know what I mean? Because there's always people out at all hours of the night around here.
Yeah, certainly city people feel differently about safety than, you know, folks do who've grown up in like rural areas or suburban areas.
But that's the funny thing is, though, is like I did grow up in like a rural area, and I still feel like it's like technically more unsafe than living in any part of New York City, just because of the volume of people that are around. Like I've heard like one too many stories of like kids getting abducted or like people getting dragged into dark alleys or whatever up in the middle of nowhere to like really think that there's really that much of a safety advantage there.
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, I've definitely heard people from the city talk about that, like people who were going to school in upstate New York saying they were freaked out by how desolate things looked there, like no one around, you know, no like hustle and bustle and safety and numbers of people. I definitely hear that. That's a real thing.
Here's what's like the thing. It's like, you know, I feel like I feel safer in Harlem at 3:30 in the morning than I would at 3:30 in the morning in bumfuck America.
Well, it also depends on the neighborhood too. I mean, some neighborhoods are different than others, and some neighborhoods, you know, don't like take to people who maybe they don't
take
like
kindly
know.
To people who don't take kindly around here.
Yeah, I mean, some neighborhoods, but I mean, some, you know, I mean, city neighborhoods can be like that too. If you're like in a certain neighborhood and they're like, who is this? You know, like they may not take kindly to like someone that they don't know on their block, you know, so it really depends on the neighborhood.
Yeah, and I mean, did I tell you the story about I feel like I did, the story about going into the deli with Julian and like all of when Julian and I were living in Bed-Stuy, like
yes,
yeah, in that apartment where you were too, but you weren't with me like for this particular
incident.
Corner store excursion, because I was very clearly the only white person in the store, and the ladies in line in front of me like started talking about how like weirded out they were about like all the gentrification, because they felt like that like there were people who hadn't grown, like they said like, well, I don't know about all these new apartments coming up, like we don't know who's moving into these apartments. What if they're serial killers or whatever?
Right. I lost you. I can't hear you. Can you hear her, Sam? Oh, I can't hear you either.
Uh-oh.
I don't know what's going on. Whoops.
Whoops.
Now I can hear you again.
Okay.
I think it's my internet connection. I don't know.
Say I hear everybody.
Internet connection.
We don't hear you.
Well, no, I'm just kind of listening.
Oh, you're listening.
Oh, you've been hearing everyone the whole time, ish?
Yeah.
That's my internet connection then. I guess this stupid thing I bought didn't do anything. Maybe it did. I don't know.
But like what I was saying was that like these ladies in line, they were just like, well, we don't know who's moving into the neighborhood. They could be serial killers or something, and they're giving me like the stink eye. And
Really?
and like after, not at the time, obviously, after we left the store, like Julian and I just kind of like laughed about it.
Yeah.
But you know, I kind of know what they meant, because like I don't think it was really that they thought we were serial killers. Like I think that they were scared of gentrification, and I don't fucking blame them.
Yeah.
You know, because like it's their neighborhood that they'd grown up in, and now all of a sudden, like there's like fuck tons of white people moving in who are basically going to get freaked out at, who they assume might get freaked out at like the littlest barbecue and call the cops, you know?
Right.
Also might get concerned about like us driving the prices up.
Or driving the prices up, yeah. Like, or like, you know, that suddenly the whole block is going to be taken over by an artisanal cheese shop.
I mean, I'm not sure if that's something to be afraid of, but yeah.
Well, no, the only reason I say that, did you ever see, there was a Saturday Night Live sketch. It was Jay Farrow and Kenan Thompson and Kevin Hart who was hosting that week. And they were all, and it was supposed to take place in Bushwick. And it was like basically like Kenan and Jay Farrow and Kevin Hart were supposed to be playing like guys, like tough guys, like on the block, on the corner.
Except, I saw that.
Yeah, except like when, at one point when they talk about like, you know, one of them says, oh, well, I was out with all my bitches last night, and it cuts to like a scene of like him walking like a bunch of floofy poodles. And then another one of them said, went out to Martha's yesterday, and you think that he's gonna be talking about like some girl he banged, and it turns out Martha's is an artisanal cheese shop.
Right.
And it's basically, the whole thing is like basically like making fun of like kind of like the back and forth of gentrification in neighborhoods like Bushwick, where there's still people who have been there for ages and ages and ages, and versus like people who like are coming in and thinking that they're being helpful and cleaning it up, but what they're really doing is like ruining these people's neighborhood, ostensibly.
You know, speaking of which, I heard Charles Barron was speaking on this panel, this Zoom panel some weeks ago. I got to check out. It was basically one of the fellows down in what's that city in Mississippi, the progressive one I was in?
Jackson, Oxford.
Yeah, Jackson, yeah. Yeah, one of the fellows down in Jackson, Mississippi was a part of like, I always forget the name of it. I think it's like Marcus Garvey. I don't know. It's some name, like some group or whatever. And it's, you know, basically like they've got ties to the NAACP down there, and they work on like, you know, Black issues. And Charles Barron was talking about how he's fought gentrification in, I think he's out of East New York. It's either
Is
East
it-
New York or Brownsville.
I mean, they're next door to each other, so he could be both.
Yeah, I want to say East New York though. I feel like that's maybe the one. Maybe that's like the last place in Brooklyn that hasn't been gentrified as much yet.
Well, East New York and Brownsville both haven't been gentrified as much, but
Right. One more than the other. I think East New York. But anyway, he was saying that you could find a one-bedroom apartment for like, he was saying like $700 to $800 a month, and whatever place he's a representative of. And I was like, I wonder if he's exaggerating or if that's like,
I don't think he's exaggerating though.
or if that depends on like income level, like if that depends on a bunch of things, like
Well, I mean,
income levels, waiting lists, things
I
like
think
that.
it does depend partially on income levels because
Uh-huh.
I know, and I'm not sure if it's the same. Like, I think this is true a little less so for East New York, but again, like they're right next to each other. I know, like Brownsville is something like 75% public housing,
Mm-hmm.
which NYCHA has a list like longer than if you laid two of Michael Jordan down head to toe.
Okay, so you're saying like, not just like the projects, but like just whatever housing that you're seeing, a lot of it is public housing. You're saying like a lot of housing that
Well,
just
no.
looks like apartments, or
No, a large part of Brownsville is the project,
oh, I see.
and the
Okay.
line to get an apartment in the projects is like longer than whatever long thing you can imagine.
Oh, okay. I got you.
So
Well,
like,
yeah, I guess that was part of my question, was like when he was kind of like touting like, look, I've stood up to gentrifiers in my neighborhood and you can get a place for this cheap, and in the neighborhood, I was wondering like, is he talking about like anyone can get a place for this cheap? Is he talking about, NYCHA housing, or is he just talking about like just an apartment, just like an apartment that anyone could
I
get?
mean, a lot of like housing in New York that's that cheap right now, it's either NYCHA or it's like housing lotteries where it's like your rent is like, where it's like it's like you pay like 30% of your income
Mm-hmm.
or whatever in rent.
Sure.
So it's like, and it's the same way for NYCHA. So like, for example, like some people do pay like whatever $700-800 for like a 2 or 3 bedroom apartment in NYCHA.
Sure.
But like, whereas like, I think, and I did at one point like sit and crunch the numbers, and I can't remember exactly, but I feel like that like someone like me, like I'm probably paying now, like we're probably paying for our apartment what we would have been paying like in NYCHA or in like us in like Section 8 anyways.
Okay.
So it's kind of like, I don't know, I feel like like the term affordable housing is kind of broad because affordable means different things to different people, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And would you just get like a really good deal for your place, or?
Well, we've lived in it for 11 years and it's rent
Oh.
stabilized, so they
Oh,
can't
okay.
Wait, you've
raise.
lived in your current apartment for 11 years?
Yeah, because we
Wow.
moved right in here. We moved right into this apartment when I left the Bed-Stuy apartment.
Wow, good for you.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And it's like we've lived in the same apartment 11 years and we don't, and it's rent stabilized, so they've never been able to raise our rent more than like $20 a year or something.
Hmm.
So we're still paying actually a lot less than like a lot of other people in our building, simply because like I feel like here's the interesting thing. When we moved in, when we moved into the apartment, literally me and our next door and the guy who lives next door to us were like the only white people in the building.
Okay.
And now I feel that like, now I feel like I'm always running into other white people in the elevator. And like I feel like half the building is like overrun by white hipsters. And I feel like guys, please, like I was here first. Don't lump me in with the gentrifiers.
How long ago did that start happening? That you noticed like the change in the demographics where you live?
Maybe about like 2013, 2014-ish.
Okay, yeah.
Like, but yeah, I'm like, I feel like that, like, I moved in here, like, hell, even within my own fucking apartment, I'm the only white person. but now it's like, half the damn building is like hipsters with Daria glasses.
Oh, but aren't those your people?
Yes and no. The sarcasm, yes.
Okay.
But I can't say I'm a huge fan of hipsters.
Okay.
Just go
yeah.
on. Just because of the whole gentrification factor.
Hmm.
In the sense that, like, I don't know, it bugs me that, like, they feel like they're being edgy by moving into, like, certain neighborhoods.
Hmm.
Like, I don't know, like, it almost feels like that, like, a lot of the people moving into my building now, like, it's almost like that they have, like, a white savior complex, it seems like.
Why do you say that?
Well, just, I don't know, just all the gentrification, like, all of, like, the prices going up around here, and, like,
Mm-hmm.
and the fact that, like, I don't know, like, I just don't know. It just doesn't feel right to me. It's kind of hard to put into words.
All right. I mean, I'm not a fan of hipsters either, but I don't know. Some people just move into certain neighborhoods because it's what they can afford.
But that's the thing. It's not about affordability, because they're easily paying, like, probably like triple what I'm paying for the same amount of space.
Hmm.
So it's like, I don't know, it's like there's clearly money there, like, and then I feel like they move in and expect the neighbors to, like, act like them when they're the ones encroaching on the space.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta wonder, like, when people move in like that, it's still gotta be cheaper than what else they're looking at, right? Like relatively, it's not, because you're paying a lot less than sort of the people living there, but they're probably paying less there than they would at other places that they're looking at.
Yeah. When I was living in that neighborhood, it was literally because it's what I could afford. It wasn't for any other reason. But then again, I don't think, but that's okay. I'm not the kind, I realize I'm also not the kind of person that Emily's talking about. So,
Well, you didn't try to change the character of the neighborhood.
no, not at all. As a matter of
Oh.
fact, I loved the president of my block. I'm still friends with her on Facebook. I got invited to, like, every time there was a barbecue, she let me know. Yeah, so.
Like what I was talking about was more like, and it's not so much like,
Stupid hipsters.
well, yeah, but I mean, I haven't seen this quite so much in my specific building as just in the neighborhood in general. Like, Misha was telling a story the other day about how, like, way back, like, this was before we even lived here, like, so it was it was probably around the time I was working for NYPERG when he used to live back over by Columbia, and there was some boxing match on TV he wanted to see, and whatever reason, like, he didn't get cable, I think is what it was, or he didn't want to pay for pay-per-view. That's what it was. So he left, and he was trying to see if there was like a bar or something showing the fight that he could watch, and he found like a bunch of people, who had actually set up a TV out on the block and a barbecue and like beer and whatnot, and like they had rolled like their big screen TV out onto the sidewalk and all chipped in like a couple bucks each to pay to order the fight on Showtime or HBO or whatever the fuck it was on.
Okay.
And so Misha stopped and he watched the fight with like the people who were having the block party.
Cool.
And started chatting with them. And he said that when he was chatting with them, that they were kind of like, well, man, you're cool and all, but like all these Columbia students moving in around us, like they complain, like when we have block parties on Saturdays, like they complain or call in noise complaints to the police or like come out and yell at us that they're trying to sleep or study on like a Saturday night when we're having a block party. And and what the guy said to me was like, if it was like whatever, if it was like a Wednesday, we get it, but we're not doing this on a Wednesday. We're working people too, and we want to let off a little steam, and this is how we've been doing it for years and years and years. And they just move in, and now all of a sudden they want us to act like as quiet as a mouse. Like, it's that kind of thing that bugs me, and I don't think you fall into that category.
No, certainly not. But yeah. Yes. Totally. Yeah, I totally agree and agree with you and understand. It's
like people can't move into a neighborhood that's had their own sense of community for years and years and years and expect the community to adapt to them. They have to adapt to the community. Like, if they really need to fucking be studying on a Saturday night, go to the fucking library. That's what it's there for.
Yeah.
And if the library's closed, well, maybe they should just, like, start managing their time better. Like, I hate to be a bitch about it, but like, people can't expect the world to revolve around them.
Yeah, or like, welcome to New York, learn to tune it out.
Or that. I mean, like, you think I've been happy about all the fireworks the past few weeks?
Oh, they've been horrible. It's so annoying.
Well, my brother has been complaining too. Like, because they were setting them off like literally right next to his window.
Also, where have all these been? Where have they all been coming from, though? Seriously, like it's never been this prevalent before, as far as I can remember. How on earth is it happening this much?
I mean, I think that like a lot of like the wholesale distributors, because a lot of like official fireworks shows were canceled because they don't want large crowds gathering due to the virus.
Okay.
So like the wholesale distributors had like an overstock. So people are kind of jumping in and
so they were just like
going to Pennsylvania and buying them in bulk and then coming back here and selling them in the back out like the backs of their cars and shit.
Oh,
yeah.
somebody made a lot of money selling them cheap.
Yeah, exactly. But it felt like it was like it felt like that like, oh, Cynthia says she has some great news.
Yes.
Oh yeah, she said that.
Wonder if she got a date.
Right.
Since that's been her subject of complaint lately.
That's funny.
But no, like what I was saying is like, you know, that I think that it's just been like that the usual supply wasn't bought by the actual fireworks people because of the COVID.
They had a surplus and they saw an opportunity.
And the black market took over.
Okay. All right. Well, that's a good theory. That's better than the crazy. That's certainly a lot more reasonable than the crazy conspiracy I saw about how the government is like doing this to prepare us for like, you know, to desensitize us to disturbances so that when they come in and start shooting people more often, we won't complain about it or notice the difference.
Well, you know, when I was reading something interesting the other day, like it's come to the point where I've kind of had to ban myself from reading the comments section on Facebook posts sometimes.
It's a good idea.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Simply because I end up getting into arguments with people.
Yep.
And
I've had that problem too, as you know.
But it's like, you know, for example, like I'm subscribed to like a Facebook group of like city teachers. And I think I mentioned this before, but I've gotten into like huge ass arguments like over Facebook on like these teachers' message boards about NYPD and schools.
Okay.
To which like they've said, but we can't pull the police out of schools. What if who's gonna protect us? Blah 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 blah. And if I dare try to call them out on the fact that they're really being implicitly racist, like they just yell at me and say, well, I hope you never get robbed and have to call the police.
Right.
And then starts like spitting back statistics about like the crime rate going up in the city right now and all this other bullshit. And I start to think like, you know, how much of, at the same time, like nobody wants people getting like robbed and raped and murdered, obviously. But it's like, at the same time, like, where do you, like, people seem to have a very differing definition of where the line is between, like, legit worrying about safety and, like, what starts to go into, like, racism territory, if that makes any sense.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the way that the the real estate markets are built on those kind of things, you know.
You
Charge
mean you're
people
talking
more.
about like, redlining being like a
Yeah,
way of like making insular.
redlining, charging people more for feeling safe, charging people more for not being around people of color, that kind of thing.
Mm.
But it kind of it kind of makes me start to think like on a philosophical level, like who makes the definition of safe? Because, for example, like I find, and this is even like, I think there might have been more random crime, like in my neighborhood, like even like back when you lived here, Sam. Like I think,
Yeah, when I lived, I was not thrilled when I lived there, but again, it was what I could afford.
but when I say that, I mean, I feel like that was a few years ago.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and I feel like at this point, it's come to the point where I feel like a lot of the crime in the neighborhood is likely gang related and they're having beef with each other. And they generally are not going to target a civilian unless you make yourself an easy target, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, so like, I feel like, what's the purpose of worrying about safety if like I'm not involved in any dirt
Right.
that I'm aware of anyways. But it's just like, I'm interested to know like how people feel about like the quote unquote increase in crime and what that's going to mean for like meeting the goal of criminal justice reform now, ostensibly, because it's bringing people.
What increase in crime are we talking about?
Well, the fact that supposedly, and again, God only knows who does the statistics, but that supposedly like shootings are up to like the highest level they've been like since like 1996 or whatever.
Where is this?
In New York.
In New York City?
Yeah, and everybody in New York City, and that's been the big thing is that everybody is blaming it on the protests, that everybody's blaming it on the fact that like everybody's taking the easy way out and blaming it on saying like, well, the cops aren't being allowed to do their jobs. So I feel like, how we're like what's the next tactic? Like, how do we convince people that the police aren't necessary, I guess, if their perception is that crime is going up?
Well, I mean, it depends on the person. I mean, some people are able to be talking off of a cliff and shown actual statistics in context, and some people are just going to listen to whatever the scary, gossip of the day is.
Listen to whatever Tucker Carlson tells them on Fox News.
Yeah, or just whatever's in the air, like not even from a specific source, but from a source they know not where it's coming from.
But I mean, I feel like too, and like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like that the protests against the NYPD are likely not to be the cause of an increase in crime. Like,
No, I mean, that sounds ridiculous.
I would be willing to say that the COVID is more responsible.
Why so?
Just because crime tends to increase with economic insecurity, which there's sure been a lot of that.
Oh, right. People
created by the virus, by people being out of work because of places closing.
That makes sense.
And I feel like that there is probably like more black market shit going down,
Yeah.
like because, or people being desperate to pay bills or whatever. Like I was reading something today that said like a quarter of residents hadn't paid rent. Like a quarter of New Yorkers hadn't paid rent since March
That makes sense.
because, you know, how are waiters gonna work like when, how are waiters gonna work when restaurants are closed? And
Yeah. A lot more than just waiters.
well, yeah, but I was giving that as like the TLDR example.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, I would. Yeah, I wish I could have been in that category, but sadly, it hasn't happened.
What, waiters and actors?
No, I wish I could have gotten a reprieve on at least just 1 month's rent, just so I could. But that's just because of my own, for my own personal needs. I could, you know, help me clear out of the debt that I got myself in. But all right.
I mean, like
But I'm luckier than most people, and I know it. The
You've been spending it
unfortunate.
on haircuts and stuff, Sam.
Ha 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 ha
You
ha
gotta
ha
get
ha.
your own cheap liner, line yourself up, you know?
Yeah, real extravagance. No, you know what? But also, yeah, it's just
I actually think men have it worse than I do as far as like dealing with hair,
How so?
because it's like I don't think I've actually cut my hair since like Thanksgiving,
Right.
because right around when the pandemic started and shit
Mhm.
started to close down is probably when I would have been due
Right.
to get a haircut.
Yeah.
So I basically have just like let it go, and there's not that much like, you know,
Maintenance.
well, it's like, how do I phrase this? Like Sam, if your hair grows an inch, everybody notices because
Yep.
men's hair is short. If my
Right,
hair
right.
grows an inch, it doesn't make that much of a difference.
Yeah.
Sure.
Like,
That's true.
like my problem is much more like with like gray hair than anything else.
Oh, that's funny.
And
Yeah,
yes,
that's funny.
I do have a fair amount of grays. They're just covered.
Yes.
Each
Yes.
gray hair is named after a student.
Oh, that's so funny. You know, honestly, I think a big part of the problem is that honestly, the economy is just not, or the government, we're just not prepared to offer
We're
relief
prepared to deal with this
in
shit.
situations like this, because even if, you know, we're all demanding like, you know, that like freezing rent and stuff like that, and like freezing other bills, and that would be great, except
But
no,
the landlords have to pay bills too.
exactly.
Well,
So
they were talking about freezing mortgages too.
yes, okay, right, but none of that's happened. So yeah,
It's kind of like a cascading effect, because like mortgages, they were talking about canceling mortgages, but mortgages haven't been canceled.
right.
And landlords, like, and I mean, honestly, like large corporate landlords, honest to God, excuse my French, but fuck them. They could probably
Yeah,
absorb
exactly.
it. But
Yeah, exactly.
like, I'm referring to like, you know, people who own like one building or whatever. Like,
Yeah, like
and are still,
my
and are,
landlords are great. They've only got and they're wonderful, and they only own 2 apartment buildings. So
but like if their mortgage and like property taxes and shit aren't relieved, then that cascades down to like them wanting to be human and like forego asking for rent, but they can't.
mhm.
And then that trickles down to like people who are out of work through no fault of their own because they work in an industry that like is not global pandemic friendly.
Yep. My
Ending up in really tight,
yeah.
ending up in a rock and a hard place, basically.
I hear you. When I got my hair cut, and Flavie won't let up about this, and good for you. When I got my hair cut on Wednesday, no, I was talking to her, and she kept telling me that there was a long period of time where she was seriously considering entering into another line of work because what she does is so vulnerable to something like this that it made her realize what if this continues to go on for as long as it does, what's going to happen to my livelihood. So,
you know what's crazy about the whole haircut game was like no one thought something specific like this would happen, but like in the past, if you couldn't get to a barber's place, they'd be happy to come to your place, you know? Like worst come to worst.
right. But again, yeah, yes, right. Yes, but that's wasn't going to be happening here.
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
Definitely not. Barbers did not see this coming.
Barbers would do that. That's true.
Yeah, barbers
would do that. Yeah.
did not see this coming.
No, I don't think anyone did.
Mhm.
Like barbers didn't see this. I didn't see it coming. Like,
Yeah.
for fuck's sake, like on
So
March.
maybe someone should have because this sort of thing happens once every 100 years,
Well,
more or less.
well, here's the thing though. It's like I didn't see it coming because, I mean, look, I left. I mean, I should have known because it was fucking Friday the 13th. But like, yes, Friday the 13th was the last day of in-person school, and I left that day, and like I said goodbye to my kids, and I was like, and my coworkers, and I was like, see you Monday. Well, I saw my coworkers on Monday, but only because we had to go in to like basically unplug everything and close out our classrooms and act like it was the end of the school year. And even then, like, they said to us, oh, well, we're only going to close for a couple of weeks. We'll be back April 20th.
Mm-hmm.
Lies upon lies upon lies.
Yeah, like 420 is a really good, a good day to have school anyways. Terrible thinking. People were not thinking ahead.
Yeah.
Although
I
I'm
think
not.
actually, no. I don't know what people knew. I remember when this first started at the time, I felt like a lot of people did think it's just going to be a couple of weeks.
I thought it was just going to be a couple of weeks. And I was like, okay, I could do this. And now here we are in July.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and it's like the longer it goes on, like, I feel like, I don't know, the longer it goes on, the more scary it gets that, like, things will never return to normal for at least some groups of people, you know what I mean?
It's not going to. It's life as we knew it's not the same anymore. There's going to be eventually we're going to return out into the world, but things are going to be different for a while.
I mean, it's like, I don't know, like I've started to like, and don't get me wrong, this isn't necessarily me downplaying.
Sorry,
don't get me wrong, this isn't me downplaying the severity of the virus, but I'm starting to feel like, you know, well, where and how are we going to draw the line that like certain things are safe again? Like, where's the threshold? Like, I found myself having like irrational fear that like now they're going to decide, oh, like every winter, every school has to go back to remote learning because it's flu season, or that like it's going to become the norm to like constantly wear masks. Like,
that's going to bother me, but yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, or that like, and I feel like, you know, like, when is what I feel like they know that, like, at this point coronavirus is ostensibly here to stay. Like, even with a vaccine, I feel like we're never going to get back down to, like, to 0 cases. So it's like, where do we draw the line of, like, when it's safe to
Yeah.
take
Yeah.
that risk, to
Yeah.
take again? Because, like, I mean, look, we're never 100% safe from germs, like, and we never have been.
Yep.
And I think that, like, I kind of have a fear that may or may not be unfounded,
Mm-hmm.
that suddenly that it's going to be really hard to peel back from, like, just generally being an insanely germophobic society, and how much is too much.
Yeah, I don't know. You know, when this, like, for a while when this whole thing started, I just kept making jokes about how, we were like living in 12 monkeys, but like it's just it's gotten, yeah.
Well, and it's real interesting too, because, like, even with the whole schools thing, and this is a very odd dichotomy, and I think some of it has to do with socioeconomic standing as well. But I'm finding that, like, most of the teachers who are pushing back about the possibility of returning in September
Yes.
tend to be, like, for lack of a better term, people of privilege, and
Oh, is
and the
that true? I didn't know that.
and the parents want their kids. Like, it seems like, from what I read on, like, teacher message boards and what I hear from, like, they only want their kids back to school no matter how much they want to go,
Mhm.
simply because, like, the virus is just fucking out of control there. But, like, in a place like New York, where, like, 99% of COVID tests given come back negative, like, I'm noticing, like, a real, like, sentiment of, like, teachers being like, well, I don't want to die, so I want to continue, like, teachers being terrified of their own mortality, I guess, and being like, we don't want to come back. And then the parents pushing back against them because they're like, well, we have to go to work. What are we going to do with our kids? Like, we're like, blah, 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 our kids need to be in school. And I find it interesting that it seemed to be, like, people who were coming from, like, a place of privilege that wanted to keep schools closed, and people who didn't necessarily have that level of privilege wanted to keep schools open, or wanted to reopen schools, you know what I mean?
Mm.
And I mean, I think some of it is the fact that, like, you know, in certain populations, you know, parents do have to go back to work, like, their livelihood depends on it. But
Yeah.
also, like, in some populations, like, remote learning in itself is a thing of privilege, I've discovered. Like, if for no other reason than that you can't assume that everybody has like high-speed internet or a computer or even a phone. Like I had students who had their cell phones turned off because their parents couldn't pay the bills because they lost their jobs during COVID. And like it, like remote learning is almost, being able to participate in remote learning is almost privilege in itself, simply because of like all the technology and the technology know-how and like, you know, the self-motivation to succeed at it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and I think sometimes like the people who aren't even willing to try to find a way to at least get some kids back to school are kind of like, you know, sitting in a place of privilege.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree that would be the case. Yes, the people who, yeah, it's just, yeah, it's just most people are like, except like a lot of them seem to be, yeah, itching from cabin fever and just want to get back to their lives because they miss being out and about. You know, I agree. I think that's a very, you know, astute assessment. Yeah.
Well, God knows my students are lonely. Like, they talk to me for 15 minutes. Who the hell wants to talk to a teacher for 15 minutes when they're 18? You know what I mean?
Oh, it depends if you're a good teacher. You know, I still have, you know, I still talk to a few of my teachers from high school.
Well, I mean, I guess so do I. But like, the funny thing is that like, the kids who will talk to me for 15 minutes are also the ones that say that I'm the first teacher that ever actually thought good things about them in their lifetime. But like, people are restless. People want to go back. I feel like there's just like a dichotomy between like the people who are restless and the people who are scared. These days, if that makes any sense. And I think that like, you know, most people fall somewhere on that continuum between completely restless and terrified as shit. Because I think, you know, even I have like a healthy bit of fear and common sense. Like, I'm not going to run out and run around like an asshole, like all these Trump supporters, like who refuse to even wear masks in the fucking grocery store. Like, no, they're being whiny little bitches if they can't put on a mask for 20 minutes in the store.
Yeah.
But like I'm not against like the idea of precautions, but I'm against the idea of like staying locked in the rest of our lives, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly don't want it to be like that. I know very few, I don't know anybody who does like want it to be like that. It's stifling. It's no way to live. It's a bad science fiction movie. It's not, yeah.
Well, and sometimes I feel like, well, like what message are we teaching the kids that like, you know, that their friends are walking biohazards, you know what I mean? Or that you, like kids are very impressionable. Yeah. And like, I can't help but wonder if like they're gonna like head into adulthood.
I couldn't help but wonder. Yeah.
Like kind of still with the idea of like that they can't stand within 6 feet of their friends because their friends are walking biohazards.
I mean, it's true.
And although I'm not gonna lie, like I'm not complaining about people getting up all in my, being like prohibited from getting all up in my face in the store. Like I kind of hope people maintain some modicum of personal space after this.
Yeah, I hope so too. It would have been good to just. It would have been good, like, for it to, that to be. It should have been like that anyway, but especially now. Like, again, when I was on the subway on Wednesday, most people were wearing a mask, but not everybody was, and that really pissed me off. Part of me really wanted to like scold them, but the other part of me was just like get away from them as quickly as possible. Like, I just didn't even want to be near them.
Well, I think the idea that's kind of hard for people to wrap their brains around, as far as the masks too, is that, like, because I'm not gonna lie, this, like, if I didn't have a science background like myself, if I wasn't like a very educated person, this would sound really weird to me too, as I think people are having a hard time wrapping their minds around the idea of like asymptomatic transmission. And I think that's the key. I think that's why we're in the situation that we're in, is because this thing spreads asymptomatically so easily.
Yes.
Because, like, most people aren't dumbasses and they know to stay home when they're sick.
Yep.
But like I'm not gonna go to, and I go to school with a cold, I'm not gonna lie, but I'm not gonna go to school like, you know, with a fever, coughing all over people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I think most people can conceive of the idea that, you know, they shouldn't go out in public if they're sick, and or they could even conceive of the idea that they should wear a mask if they absolutely have to go out, but they're fucking, like, you know, sneezing all over the place. But because before COVID, like, I did have some students who had the courtesy, like, they didn't want to miss school because they didn't want to get behind in their work. But
Sure.
But they at least did have the courtesy to wear a mask to school.
Yeah.
Or, like, you know, in Asian countries, when people have been wearing masks like forever whenever they're sick, because they actually have like common courtesy. But I think what people are having a hard time wrapping their heads around is the fact that, like, the possibility that they could be sick and not know it, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Like, I think a lot of people not wearing masks, like, it just does not compute with them.
Yeah.
Like, the idea that, like, well, they don't view themselves as potentially sick.
Yep.
Because they don't feel sick.
Yep.
Like, I'm not gonna lie, like, even I feel kind of weird wearing a mask everywhere, like, knowing that I most likely knowing that I already had it and that I most likely probably don't have it again.
Right.
But I mean, I still do it just on, like, the premise of, like, well, we don't know if I can catch it again, and I'd rather not be a jackass. But I feel like that, like, the general populace just isn't as educated about science to understand, like, the prospect that they could be sick without feeling sick, and that the germs that, like, they're not feeling sick from could be lethal to somebody else. Like, it does not compute that, like, people could have the same disease and one person could be 100% asymptomatic and the next person could die from it, if that makes any sense. It just seems like an extreme difference.
Yes.
because honestly, I do have a science background, and it even kind of does not compute sometimes to me. But it also kind of makes me start to wonder, I wasn't that symptomatic with COVID. So
Right.
it makes me kind of wonder, like, how many times have I gone to school or to work in my life, like, just thinking that I was just a little tired that day when I was probably actually sick, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people are so used to like this idea of like having to, take care of our finances that will oftentimes forego our own health for up to a certain point. Like if we're not, like if we start feeling really sick, if we dip below 70% or something like that, we'll really register and check in with ourselves. But I do feel like I feel like a lot of people just feel like, oh, if we hurt ourselves a little bit, it's like, oh, it's not that bad. Or if we're tired, or if we just feel like a mild cold, it's like, oh, okay, well, can't call out sick. There's only so many days I can call out sick. Yeah, there's
I've seen that, like, in multiple jobs that I've worked, where it's like, I get sick time. Like, it's not like I don't get sick time, but as far as like in my teaching job, it's been like, it's much more of an issue of like, I don't worry about getting paid, or I don't worry about losing money by calling out so much, because I know I'll still get paid, because I do get sick days.
Mm-hmm.
Unless I'm sick for like a month or something. But like, I never use all my sick days, so I never worry about getting paid.
Oh, there you go.
It's just like, but it's just much more like an issue of like, well, do I really want to like go to the extra trouble to make a plan for a substitute teacher to follow, and then come back the next day and see that my room has been like smashed to smithereens because kids act like assholes when there's a sub there, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, so it's kind of like that thing. It's just kind of like not wanting, it's almost like, and my kids say that, like my kids say this sometimes, and I used to say this when I was in high school, that I didn't like staying home sick because I would come back the next day and feel like I missed like a week of work of school work when I had just missed a day. Like,
yeah,
I kind of feel like that, like, I don't like to call out sick, not because of the money aspect, but because of like the aftermath of calling out.
Yeah, I agree. Yes. Yeah.
Because of like all the shit that's going to be waiting for me to do and clean up.
Yes. Yeah.
And I feel like if I had an office, and I feel like, with teaching, it's like, oh shit, I'm going to have to leave my kids with a sub, and they're going to fuck up the classroom, and I'm going to get behind in my lesson plans. Like, with an office job, it's like, oh shit, I have all these papers on my desk, and there's deadlines.
Yeah.
Like, when I worked at Starbucks, it was like, you got sick time, so if you called out sick, you didn't have to worry about getting paid, but lots of luck finding someone to cover for you.
Right.
Like, and that's where, honestly, if you're fucking working with food, you should be able to call out sick, no questions asked.
Yeah.
Like, because that's a public health issue in itself. Yeah. So it's just like, I feel like there's like, it's not only money, there's just like all of these like almost like logistical nightmares that come out of calling out sick from work.
Yeah, whenever I call out a sick, I try not to call out on a day when somebody has to cover for me. Like I try to make sure that it's on a day where like I don't have any institutional obligations that somebody has to fill in for me if I don't show up. So that's what I try to do. I get it.
Like if you have to appear in court, you don't call out.
Exactly. I try not to. Yeah, I try not to. I rarely do. I think I've done it like 2 or 3 times, maybe 4, like in the entire 11 years that I've worked at Legal Aid. So, yeah, I try to do that because I don't want to. Yeah, it's an imposition, and you know everyone's understanding, but I don't want to. And I'll cover for them as I'll take a day from them as an exchange, as a thank you. But it's
well, and that's another thing. Like if you like, since I've been teaching, like if you call out too late, like if you wake up sick, like it's a really hard time finding a substitute.
Right, exactly.
Means that like oftentimes other teachers lose their prep time to cover your class.
Right.
And then you feel like an ass for like imposing on your colleagues, you know? So,
yeah.
So it would be like, I just would not call out for work like ever, unless I had a fever usually. And that's a very rare occurrence for me. Like,
well, that's very considerate of you too.
Well, I mean, like, the fact that I very rarely actually ever run a fever means that I very rarely ever, at least in the past, called out from work.
Yeah.
Like, given that, like, I'm probably, like, the poster child for why temperature checks are probably just going to end up being security theater with the coronavirus.
Oh, that's funny.
Why is that?
Because, like, for some reason, like, I don't have a propensity really to run high fevers when I get sick. Like, even when I had COVID, I don't think I ran over a 99 temperature at any point. And which to some people which isn't even like above the threshold of like being able to like call it a real fever. They would still let me in the door with a 99 fever, and then I would have gotten everyone else sick.
Hey, what's up, Cynthia?
Hey.
Hey, Cynthia.
So what's your good news?
I got my permit today.
Oh, nice. Good job. Your driver's permit?
Yep. At the ripe age of 30. And I'm taking my
right.
motorcycle permit test next week.
Oh, wow. That's exciting.
I can't wait.
Hello.
Oh, my God.
Well, I'm staying inside.
Okay, yeah.
What have you guys been talking about?
All right, thanks. Bye.
We've just been talking about school and stuff.
Oh.
All right, I'll be back in a few minutes. I'm not going anywhere. But
Nice haircut, Sam.
Thank you, Cynthia. Well, I am going somewhere, but I'll be back in a few minutes.
Okay.
No, we
Yeah,
were
I hear that
talking.
Trump is, they want schools to open in the fall.
Don't get me started.
Yeah.
That's the biggest clusterfuck known to man. And like, honestly, like, I miss my kids like so much, but
Really?
you know, the funny thing is that like my coworkers say that I'm the most maternal of any of the teachers, or that I have the most maternal instinct of any of the teachers, and I'm the one with no kids, so go figure.
Maybe that's why.
I mean, it could be. Maybe maybe my students are kind of like proxies for the kids that I don't have.
Yeah,
like-
exactly.
but like we were just talking about how like we were talking about masks and how like and how Sam was saying that he got back on the subway to go to his hair appointment to get a haircut,
Mm-hmm.
and how he was annoyed that some people weren't wearing masks.
Uh-huh.
And I was saying, I think, and we were talking about like, well, what's up with all these people refusing to wear masks? And I was saying that I think that the problem is that it's just really hard for them to comprehend the fact of why they have to wear a mask if they don't feel sick. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
Like, I feel like a lot of their thinking is like, well, why should I have to wear a mask if I'm not sick? Because they don't understand the idea of like it just does not compute to them that something like that they could have a disease where that they could have an infection where they don't even feel sick,
Mm-hmm.
but it could make like the next person in line at Dwayne Reed that it could be lethal for them.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think people just don't comprehend that. And this whole thing has kind of made me think, well, good God, how many times have I gone to work or gone to school, like, you know, asymptomatically sick and just kept going because I didn't think I was sick, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it just kind of gets you thinking. And so we were just talking about like all the problems with like taking sick days in the US.
Mm-hmm.
So that's basically what you missed. You missed us. You missed. I can't talk. You missed Sam and me talking about like the changes of society in a global pandemic, and basically Flav and Ish being the audience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's why I say invisible. He's here, but
Yeah.
he's not really here.
Ooh, food.
Yeah. Yes.
You say that with the excitement of someone who can like enjoy his food with him. We have like a
Sam, what'd you get?
connection, empathetic connection to food.
You know, Cynthia, you get really excited to hear about what people are eating.
Yeah.
Where'd he go?
I said, Cynthia, I heard you say my name, but I was refilling the glass of water. What's up?
So what did you order?
I got churrasco.
Ooh.
At this point, whenever I go on Seamless right now, I'm basically like, all right, where are the deals? Anything that's like, so I'm like ordering from a bunch of restaurants I've never ordered from before, just to see anything off. So I hope it's good.
We ordered pizza.
Oh, good. So there's the sauteed, there's the steamed vegetables, and here's the steak. All right.
I dealt with like I fell asleep for a nap and woke up to the sounds of Misha saying, "Can we order pizza?"
That's really funny.
Did
And
you
I
order
said-
pizza?
So we ordered pizza
Good.
Oh.
and cheesy bread.
And what?
Ooh.
Pizza and cheesy bread.
Did you eat already or something?
And cheesy bread. Excellent.
Yeah, I already ate.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, my food just came. I wasn't going to, but then I was just like, it's getting late. I'm hungry. Are there any places around here that are ordering that have deals? So be quiet. Go to bed.
Shut
Good.
up.
Your bird's like, feed me too.
Yeah, your bird's pissed off that like.
You're not feeding your bird, Sam?
Yeah, no, I don't feed her. Right. Yeah, no, I don't feed her.
She wants the snacks. She wants the good stuff.
I let
She's
her
like,
fend for herself.
She's like, fuck all this bird food you've been feeding me.
Mhm.
I want the good stuff.
She's been getting plenty of fresh fruits and vegetables.
Oh, okay. Well, it doesn't get better than that. I've been on my fresh fruits and vegetables kick. Today
Yeah,
I had.
Of
Today
she
I.
will. Of course.
What's
she
that?
will.
Yeah.
Go
Today
ahead,
I
Flip.
had my first celery without peanut butter. You know,
Yeah.
the last time I talked to Andy, he was like, "Yeah, you should get some peanut butter. You can put it on the celery." And I was like, "Dude, if I get peanut butter, I'm gonna go through that thing so quick. It's not even gonna be worth the health benefits." And then, sure enough, I was like, "You know what? I haven't had celery in a long time. It goes great with peanut butter.
Mm-hmm.
I get through that whole thing in 2 days.
Yeah.
2 days for a jar. But you know, one problem is it's the kind of like oily peanut butter that you have to stir.
Mhm.
And
You mean the natural one?
yeah, it's a natural one. So it's hard to like put it on the celery stalk. So what I end up doing is just dipping it in there. But when you dip it in there, you just eat a lot more of the peanut butter that way.
Oh, okay. There you go.
No, it's not a good thing. It's not a good thing.
It's not a good thing.
I mean, it tastes great, but it's like I'm through my whole jar of peanut butter in 2 days.
Well, how's that carrot cake treating you?
You know, when's the last time I had carrot cake? I haven't had carrot cake today, so.
Did you ever get a free carrot cake from the place?
Yes, I do.
Oh,
And then
Don't
I
worry,
stopped
tomorrow
going
we'll
there.
get berries in the morning.
so they did give you a free carrot cake for your troubles.
They did, yes.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, and then of course they put the carrot cake on the bottom of the bag again, but I'm like, that's not what caused the breakage. It wasn't because it was at the bottom of the bag, but it's still a weird choice to put like the smallest item. at the bottom of the bag.
Not gonna lie, like I thought I was gonna die laughing when we heard you calling that restaurant, and I was just like, you know what, I'm not gonna mute him because this is just too funny.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Just because we had been talking about like customer service Karens earlier.
Yeah, it was right on point, right?
Yeah. And it's like, you know, we're talking about customer service, and then all of a sudden we hear, yeah, hi, I'd like to call, I'm calling because I had a problem with my order. And I'm like, you know, normally I would just say, dude, you forgot to mute yourself, I'll just mute you, but I'm like, no, this is going to be good. Let's keep listening.
Yeah. Tell Flavy to put on a blonde wig and change his name to Karen. He'll be doing like
They might mistake me for Andre 3000 or something. If I did that.
No, they might mistake you for RuPaul.
Oh, I don't have the figure for either.
Yeah.
More RuPaul than Andre.
That's really funny. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I don't think I could get mistaken for RuPaul either.
No, RuPaul's figure is legendary. That's a hard one to pull off.
Well, you didn't state the obvious.
Which is
I don't think I could pull off RuPaul.
none of us could. He's 6'4", or she's
Yeah.
6'4". Like, yeah.
Yep.
So that's yeah.
And
Well,
we're
maybe-
not as fabulous as him.
Well,
Speak
I
for
know-
yourself, honey.
Now, does RuPaul go by the pronoun of does RuPaul go by he or she?
I think it depends on the day.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
it
it's
depends on
both.
the day.
Okay.
It's both. It depends on the day. It depends. Honestly, I think it depends on how he's dressed.
Oh, right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Or how she's dressed.
Remember,
Yeah.
God, do you remember that really funny incident a few months ago when RuPaul appeared on Jimmy Fallon? And does anyone remember this?
No.
No?
It
Okay.
vaguely rings a bell.
Yeah. And so he was on Jimmy Fallon's show, and I forget what it was. He was on the cover of he was on the cover of the magazine. It was the first time that a drag queen was the cover model for this particular magazine that RuPaul was appearing on. So Jimmy Fallon said, congratulations. So he said, congratulations, you are the first drag queen to appear on the cover of this magazine. And RuPaul goes, drag queen? Drag queen? Honey, I am the queen of drag. Right. So, of course, right, of course, made perfect sense. He was, it was a mock offense, and it was just a playful jab at Jimmy's expense. However, right. there was like a brief Jimmy Fallon exhibited a split second facial expression of embarrassment. Yeah. And there were so many memes online, or people just slowing down his expression, so it was dragged out into an eternity. And it was like, here's the moment that Jimmy Fallon got canceled.
That's funny.
Oh
Yeah.
Lord, well. I think the topic's already been visited quite a lot in the past 48 hours, but just another woe of cancel culture.
Mm-hmm.
Not even allowed to make an innocent mistake anymore.
It reminds me of an interview I saw with Richard Pryor and Dick Cavett, I think it was. Some of it is just, funny and hilarious, and some of it's a little cringeworthy. And I don't know if Dick Cavett is a master of towing that line, so you don't know if he's actually being a little bit dense or if that's part of the shtick. Mm-hmm. But he goes into this whole thing. The first thing that he asked Richard Pryor is, how does he feel about white people writing for him? And so, Richard is kind of doing this what do you mean kind of thing. And then every time he says, what do you mean? Dick kind of, buries himself deeper into this hole that he's digging. But, in the beginning, he's like, well, how do you feel do you feel like they can get you, or they can get your voice? And it starts off, innocent enough, well, yeah, if they're, I think what Richard says is, yes, if they're writing for a human being and not trying to write for what they think a black guy sounds like, basically, and so that kind of makes sense, right? But then Dick is so, okay, so you mean they're not trying to put some jive on it or whatever? And Richard's yeah, exactly. And so then of course Dick kind of imitates what he means, with some jive talking, but kind of at his own expense, mm-hmm. being what a white guy sounds, trying to imitate his voice. Mm-hmm. Then he goes to, but Richard, I feel like I could, I could write for you. And he's yeah, I already said, white guys can write for me as long as they're not trying to write in some voice they think, some, mischaracterization or of a stereotype or something. Yeah, and he's yeah, but Richard, I feel like I can kind of write in the voice that black men, how black men talk. And then mm-hmm. Richard is well, what do you mean? How do we talk? And he's and then it gets kind of awkward and uncomfortable. Yeah. He's you know what I mean. He's no, man, I don't. What do you mean? And then it's getting more uncomfortable. And he's okay. Yeah. That if you were in a group, amongst yourselves, and a white guy came up and you wanted to speak in a certain way that he wouldn't understand you, that you'd be able to, to speak in a certain way, and Richard just kind of looking at him, and he's like, okay, I'll give you another example. So I was at this hotel checking in, and there was this Jamaican guy, and he's like, what's that? What's the language they speak? And he's like, well, pidgin English. Well, there's a different
yeah, they have a different dialect.
Yeah, exactly different. Yeah, patois is like what most people call it. Richard happened to call it pidgin English or whatever.
Okay.
But then the guy starts kind of imitating Richard, and Dick Cavett go back and forth a little bit, like imitating this like version of like Caribbean patois or whatever.
Okay.
And so it's just funny. So then the guy still like, it's kind of like, now it's kind of like fine, but the guy still says, so I feel like I could write for you, how you talk or whatever. And I don't know, by the time they cut to
Sounds
commercial,
like an awkward situation.
yeah, I just couldn't tell if this guy is just like brilliant at like pushing the line and being funny, or if he's also like dense at the same time. It made you should watch it. I'd be interested in what everyone else thinks.
I'm actually a big fan of Dick Cavett's old show. I thought it was the best talk show of its kind.
Okay.
He actually didn't just have celebrities on, but he did have celebrities on, but he also asked them a lot more like probing questions about what they really think about not just their profession, but like the world at large, as opposed to what most people do today.
Sure.
Dick Cavett, whenever Dick Cavett got into the subject of race, he would get himself into trouble. But it was more of, but however, he did seem to be coming, in my estimation, from the point of view of a well-intentioned but somewhat ignorant white man who didn't really understand like fully what he was talking about, and he occasionally covered it with jokes. And point of fact, if you thought that his conversation with Richard Pryor was intense, the one he had with James Baldwin is legendary.
Oh, I'll check it out. Yeah. Hey, so what do folks think? Not to cut you off or switch subjects, but we have four.
I actually wanted to say one more thing really quickly.
Oh, sure. Sorry, no, go ahead.
Before we switch, I just wanted to say, however, for an example of a conversation that he had along similar lines, but that went much better, and I think goes much a longer way towards showing that Dick was like actually meant well and was willing and wanted to learn. You should see some of the interviews that he had with Muhammad Ali, because they were great.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, so sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's fine. Hey, Sydney, is there any way that you can switch up that ringtone? Any chance? It's coming through like very piercing.
Loud.
Yeah.
I don't have a ringtone.
Or your message tone, your messages that you're getting like every 2 seconds.
Yeah, that's what the group chat sounds like, Flav.
That's the group chat?
No, that's Facebook Messenger.
Yeah, I turn all that shit off. I don't have that on ring. Are you kidding me? My phone would be smashed to pieces right now. The first thing I do when I get a new phone is I turn all the fucking Facebook sounds off. I hate them. I hate them so much. And they're like the loudest piercing noises, like that bing noise that it like automatically puts it on without asking you. And that you have to like find how to turn it off is like the worst thing in the world. I don't, for some reason I'm like, my ears are like more sensitive to that sound. It's like, I don't know.
I don't know. I don't even like hearing my phone ring like with actual noise. So.
No, I hear you. We're in the text, the text age. It's almost like when someone rings you, it's almost like they're invading your space. It's like, who is this calling me on the phone? It's like
Although
odd thing.
I almost kind of wish that I didn't constantly have my phone on vibrate, if for the one reason that that I set my phone to say, "Are you dumb, stupid, or dumb?" when it rings.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I used to do fun thing with the rings. Like we found out like how you could turn any song into a ring. Like we would turn like our own songs into ringtones or what have you. That was fun. I remember when the phones got like really, really loud. I remember like we first moved to New York around 2005 to 2007, I think was the age of like the loudest Nextel phones. They used to be like so loud. And that was like kind of like the thing. I'd look at my phone and be like, damn, my phone's all quiet. Everybody else has these loud phones. Fun if you watch a little party. So are folks looking at the script? Is that what folks are looking at right now?
Is there a script?
Yeah, I sent it a while ago.
There's a script? There's a
Sorry,
script for this?
There is. It's in the it's in the group chat.
Oh my god, I'm gonna have to scroll up through all this. Sorry. Oh my god, I don't know where. I don't know where it is.
That's okay. That's okay. I'll find it and I'll.
Thank you. I was explaining to Emily earlier. I have to mute your chat when I'm at work because if I don't, I'll
Don't apologize to me.
No, it's okay. I'll want to talk to you instead of working. So.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's good. Like if I'm doing like a really mundane work thing, where like if I'm making a bunch of calls, then it's perfect because I can just go to it whenever I want to, and I know someone will always be talking on it, just like any time of the day. But then if I'm doing something like, entering data, then it's not as easy to
Something that you have to concentrate on.
Yeah, something that I can't take my finger away from what I'm doing and scroll through, through my phone. I guess unless I had one of those eye apps where I could just like look over and use my eyes to scroll through, which is kind of weird, a little bit creepy. Okay. Oh shit! No, don't do that. Don't do that. Shit! Did I just do that? Okay. All right, it's been resent.
Yeah, because I just went scrolling and it's like, I just went scrolling all the way back and it's like.
Emily's the queen of the chat. Sometimes Emily's like literally responding to herself.
Yeah.
Well, no, what it is like, I think of like something, like I say something and then I'll be like, I'll think of something else like to add on.
Yeah.
And
Friday. Oh my god, you guys are actually
I'll
doing
just
Friday.
freaking respond to myself.
Oh my god.
Yeah, most definitely. Okay, so there is. So for now, obviously, I think we're just going to do multiple people, but we need a Smokey and a Craig. I don't mind doing Smokey. We need a Craig who's going to be like the other main person. And then there's like Kid 1, Kid 2, and then characters like Stanley. These are characters that are, aren't going to have bigger roles.
Do we have enough people?
We
Four
don't.
people?
That's what he was just saying.
No, that's what I was saying. We are you not paying attention to the instructions here? We need everyone to be present. We need everyone to be present. Let's focus. Let's be present.
Shut up, Flav. That will make me want to not pay attention.
I like to have the attention of the class.
Okay.
Just 1 second.
So yeah, basically there's 4 of us. There's 2 main characters, and then there's a host of other characters. So I think we can handle it with 4 people. I think it's just
I moved that you and Sam be the main characters because Cynthia and I did a lot of the talking during Clerks.
I'm totally cool with that. Can you 2 figure out what other characters you'll attack as they come, and then stay on those characters?
I'll be Kid 1.
Okay, so yeah, I guess just attack them as they come, and then keep them as your characters.
What about narrator?
Well, yeah. So someone could be narrator.
Sam, do you want to be the narrator since you didn't get a chance to do the screen last time?
Well, Sam's going to be Craig, which is a huge role already, so that doesn't.
Oh, it is.
That doesn't compute. Yeah. So.
Is that Ice Cube or Chris Tucker that I'm playing?
Ice Cube.
Awesome.
Oh, nice.
Chris Tucker.
So why don't you two figure out? Why don't like either?
You know what? How about I'll be the narrator and then Cynthia can just be all the random people.
Okay.
That works.
Okay. Cool. And then if the Wonder Twins come in, we can help. They can help. Divvy up.
Flav, you're Smokey.
Yes.
And Sam is Craig.
Yes.
Okay. I'll be everyone else.
Okay.
Hold
I'm just
on,
gonna grab
before
some water real quick. Yeah.
Before you do that, I would actually suggest, like, if you want to have like this divided up, like, to upload as a different video, that you totally stop recording, and then like not even pause, just stop.
Oh, right. Yeah. That makes sense.
And then start again when we start.
Okay. We'll do that.
Yeah.